Never go to the farm. Catherine, promise me. These statements, delivered with unusual intensity, were among the very few demands Joshua, my husband, made during the 24 years we were married. I had consistently honored his request, even when my curiosity bothered me during the infrequent times he spoke of his Canadian upbringing on a property he had abandoned. However, Joshua was now deceased, claimed by a heart attack that neither I nor anyone else had anticipated. After 24 years of marriage, I found myself a 52-year-old widow, accompanied by a hostile daughter and a feeling of emptiness where certainty once resided in my chest. Mrs. Mitchell. The voice of Joshua's lawyer, Mr. Winters, interrupted my thoughts. We were situated in his wood-paneled office 2 weeks following the funeral. The finality of death was reduced to signatures and paperwork. Mr. Winters mentioned one remaining item and then asked viewers to please like and subscribe to the channel and to note their location in the comments. He then pushed a small box across his desk. Inside the box was an old brass key fastened to a maple leaf keychain and a sealed envelope bearing my name written in Joshua's meticulous script. I inquired about the items, rotating the heavy key in my palm. Mr. Winters, adjusting his glasses, informed me that my husband had acquired a property in Alberta, Canada, 3 years earlier. Based on his instructions, I was only to be told of its existence after his death. The deed had been legally transferred into my name, and all taxes were settled for the next 5 years. I struggled to comprehend the idea of a property in Canada, as Joshua owned nothing outside of our current residence. It was called Maple Creek Farm, and apparently, it was his childhood residence, though the deed showed it had changed ownership several times before Joshua repurchased it. This was the farm he had told me not to visit. The location that caused his usually gentle expression to harden whenever it was brought up. Mr. Winters then quietly stated that there was something else I needed to know, Mrs. Mitchell. The property's value had increased considerably recently, and there had already been inquiries regarding its availability. I questioned how a farm could be considered valuable. Mr. Winters confirmed that it was valuable because significant oil deposits had been found in the area approximately 18 months prior. My husband had rejected several proposals from energy corporations. My mind raced with unanswered questions. Joshua had never mentioned oil, money, or the acquisition of any property. We lived comfortably from his engineering salary and my earnings as a high school English teacher, but we were far from wealthy. I wondered how he could afford to purchase a farm and why he kept it hidden from me. I carefully opened the envelope. The letter began, "My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, then I've left you too soon. I'm sorry. There's so much I should have shared with you, but I couldn't bring myself to face it. The farm now belongs to you. I spent the last 3 years transforming it from the broken place of my youth into something beautiful. Something deserving of you. Joshua wrote, I know I forced you to promise never to go there. I am releasing you from that promise now. In reality, I am requesting that you visit it just once before making a decision about its future. He mentioned that a laptop was located on the main house's desk. The access code was the date we first met, followed by my maiden name. He concluded, I love you, Kat, more than you'll ever realize, Joshua. I held the letter tightly in the chest, but my tears even deserved to surprise me. I ultimately declared, I must see this location. Mr. Winters nodded and said, of course. He warned me that Joshua's Canadian family was contesting the will. His brothers claimed he was not mentally capable when he repurchased the family estate. I argued that this was absurd, stating that Joshua was the most rational individual I had ever known. Regardless, they had submitted legal challenges. Due to the property's new substantial value, the situation might become complicated. I placed the key in my pocket, feeling a strange resolve settle over me. I informed Mr. Winters that I was traveling to Canada immediately. 48 hours later, following quickly arranged flights and an extended drive through the Albertan landscape, I found myself standing before commanding wooden gates. The gates were marked Maple Creek Farm in wrought iron. Beyond the gates, the property stretched out, far more extensive and impressive than I had anticipated. There were rolling hills, groves of maple trees turning golden with the autumn season, and Further away, a large farmhouse along with several outbuildings, all recently painted. This was clearly not a rundown family farm, it was an estate. The key smoothly engaged the gate's lock. As I drove along the winding gravel driveway, my heart was racing with anticipation and anxiety. I wondered what secrets Joshua had kept here and what part of himself he had concealed from me all these years. The farmhouse presented as a magnificent two-story structure featuring a wide porch and spacious windows. Nothing about it suggested the pain Joshua always connected with his childhood home. This place had clearly been cherished, renovated, and re-envisioned. My hands trembled as I used the key in the front door. The lock released, the door opened inward, and I crossed the threshold into the secret domain of my husband. What I saw inside made me gasp, my legs weakening, forcing me to grasp the doorframe for support. The entrance opened into a high-ceilinged great room featuring exposed beams and a fireplace made of stone. However, it was not the design that took my breath away. It was the presence of horses, not living animals, but everywhere I looked. There were exquisite paintings of horses galloping across vast fields. There were meticulously detailed sculptures capturing their power and elegance, and photographs of majestic breeds framed simply in black. My lifelong passion, the one indulgence Joshua had always supported but never fully grasped, now completely surrounded me in a gallery dedicated to my deepest love. And there, placed on a desk near the window, overlooking expansive pastures, was a silver laptop, topped with a single red rose resting on its closed lid. Before I could proceed further, the sound of tires crunching on gravel announced another arrival. I observed through the front window as a black SUV pulled up behind my rented vehicle. 3 men emerged, all displaying the unmistakable Mitchell features that Joshua possessed: tall builds, dark hair, and strong jawlines. The Mitchell brothers had arrived, and judging by their stern expressions, they were not there to welcome the widow to Canada. The men approached the house with the self-assured gait of people who believed the property belonged to them. I swiftly closed and locked the front door. My heart was pounding. Through the side window, I saw them pause on the porch, consulting with one another before the eldest, a silver-haired version of Joshua with harsher eyes, knocked sharply on the door. "Mrs. Mitchell, we know you are inside." "We should discuss this." His voice carried the same Canadian inflection that softened Joshua's speech when he was tired or distressed. I remained silent, moving away from the door. Joshua's warnings regarding his family had always been vague but emphatic. Now confronted with their sudden presence, my instinct suggested caution. The knocking resumed, more persistent this time. "Catherine, I am Robert Mitchell, Joshua's older brother. These are our brothers, Alain David, Forbade." Naturally, they were there for the farm. They hadn't come for Joshua or to meet the wife their brother cherished for 24 years. They were focused on the suddenly valuable property. I glanced at the laptop on the desk, concluding that any needed answers would likely be there. Not with the strangers outside. Disregarding the increasingly aggressive knocking, I moved to the desk, opened the computer, and input the password, 05151998 Mitchell. The screen immediately activated, opening to a directory labeled for Catherine. Inside were hundreds of video files, each dated starting from 2 weeks ago, the day after his funeral, and extending for an entire year into the future. With shaky hands, I selected the first file. Joshua's face filled the screen, appearing healthy and vibrant. Clearly recorded some time ago, rather than the thin, pale version from his last months. He smiled directly at the camera with that slightly crooked grin that always thrilled me. "Hello, Kat. If you are viewing this, then I am gone. And you have visited the farm, despite my years of insisting you promised not to," he said. He gave a soft chuckle. "I should have realized you wouldn't resist, particularly after Winters informed you about it." A lump formed in my throat. Even now, he understood me so well. "I have created a video for every day of your first year without me. 1 year of me keeping you company as you mourn. 1 year of explaining everything I should have told you while I was still living," he continued. He looked down briefly, then back with renewed determination. "Starting with why I repurchased the farm I swore I would never step foot on again." The knocking outside had ceased. Through the window, I observed the men going back to their vehicle. Retrieving documents and consulting with disgruntled expressions, Joshua continued speaking. 3 years ago, I received a diagnosis of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a heart ailment inherited from my father. The physicians gave me to 5 years. I opted not to inform you or Jenna. I did not want sympathy, nor did I want our final years overshadowed by the reality of death. His eyes softened. I wish to live fully with you until the very end, not slowly decline in your presence. Shock and anger surged within me. He had kept his diagnosis secret, made medical decisions without my input, and denied me the chance to prepare and knowingly cherish our last moments. I know you are angry, right now, he stated, as if he could read my thoughts. You have every right to be, but I hope you will eventually understand that I made this choice based on love, not deceit. The men outside were now making phone calls, pacing the gravel drive with the frustrated energy of entitled individuals being obstructed. When I received my diagnosis, I decided to utilize the remaining time I had to create something significant for you. You always expressed a fondness for horses and frequently spoke of eventually having land where you could raise them. Therefore, I located the last place anyone would expect me to go, the farm I had escaped from at age 18, vowing never to return. He moved the camera closer. What my brothers do not know is that I legally purchased the farm from our father before his death. The old man was financially ruined after numerous failed ventures, drinking away the family assets. He sold it to me for a fraction of its worth, desperate for money, making me swear to keep it secret from my brothers, who still believed they would inherit it someday. This revelation clarified the legal challenge. They assumed they held rights to property that Joshua had legitimately bought. The farm was dilapidated when I purchased it, Cat, just like when I was a child. Every time I took a business trip over the last 3 years, I was actually here, managing renovations and constructing something specifically for you. Outside, the brothers had approached the door once more. This time, Robert, the eldest, held a document, apparently a court order against the window, for me to view. Joshua continued in the video, his expression growing stern. My brothers will try to take it. They never desired the farm until the discovery of oil in the region last year. Suddenly, the worthless property they mocked me for buying became valuable. They will attempt every measure to seize it from you. One of the brothers was using his phone again, ending the call with a look of triumph. In the bottom drawer of this desk, there is a blue folder containing every legal document you require. The farm is definitively yours. I ensured that, Joshua asserted. His expression softened again. But Cat, whether you choose to keep it or sell it is entirely up to you. I built this place for you, filled it with beauty for you, but I do not want it to become a burden, another vehicle. A police cruiser, marked with Royal Canadian, mounted police insignia, was approaching the driveway. The brothers watched its arrival with satisfied looks. Joshua mentioned one final item. In the stables, you will find 6 horses. All are breeds you have admired over the years. The staff I hired will continue caring for them, whether you are here or not. They are my final gift to you, along with the means to appreciate them. The video concluded, freezing on Joshua's smiling face just as knocking resumed at the door, this time sounding more authoritative. Mrs. Mitchell, RCMP, we require you to open the door. Please, taking a deep breath, I closed the laptop, retrieved the blue folder from the drawer, and prepared to face the situation. As I reached for the door handle, my phone rang. It was Jenna, our daughter, calling from home. I hesitated, then answered, Jenna, now is not a good moment. Mom, she responded, her voice tight with anger. Why didn't you tell me about Dad's farm or the oil? His brothers just called me, offering a reasonable settlement if I help them dispute the will. What in the world is happening? The realization that they had already contacted my daughter ignited a fierce, protective feeling within me. They were not only targeting me, they were attempting to manipulate my grieving daughter. I will explain everything later, I promised, observing the police officer speaking with the brothers. But Jenna, do not sign anything. Do not agree to anything. These men are not our allies. Mom, if money is involved, double quote she started. This is not about money, I interrupted, surprised by the conviction in my voice. This is about honoring what your father desired. Please trust me on this. After a moment of silence, she sighed. Fine, but call me back immediately, when you can. I ended the call and opened the door. Facing a young RCMP officer flanked by the 3 Mitchell men, whose expressions ranged from smug satisfaction to open hostility. Mrs. Mitchell, I am Constable Wilson. These gentlemen possess a court order requesting an inspection of the property as part of an ongoing estate disagreement, Constable Wilson stated. I smiled calmly, drawing on the strength Joshua had always admired in me. Of course, Constable, but first, I believe you should examine these documents, I replied. I presented the blue folder containing Joshua's documentation. My husband anticipated this exact scenario. Robert, the eldest brother, stepped forward with a dismissive gesture. Family property disputes are complex, Constable. My sister-in-law is understandably emotional and confused. Actually, I interjected, I am neither emotional nor confused. I am a widow, standing on legally owned property. Facing 3 strangers who happen to share my late husband's DNA, I addressed the officer. And I would appreciate it if you would review these documents before allowing anyone onto my property. The constable accepted the folder, maintaining a neutral expression as he began reviewing the contents. The Mitchell brothers exchanged looks, their confidence noticeably wavering for the first time. I reflected on Joshua's video. The secret he kept to spare Jenna and me unnecessary heartache and the magnificent gift he had created during his final years. Whatever strategy his brothers employed, I was determined not to lose this final, tangible expression of my husband's love without a battle. The constable looked up from the documents, his expression having changed. These appear to be in order, Mrs. Mitchell. A clear deed transfer, properly notarized statements, even verified bank records detailing the original purchase. He then addressed the brothers. Gentlemen, I see no legal justification for forcing an inspection today. This seems to be an issue for the civil courts. Robert's face reddened with anger. This is outrageous. That woman has no right to double quotes. That woman, I calmly interrupted, is Joshua Mitchell's wife, and I have every right to be here. As the brothers reluctantly retreated toward their vehicle, followed by the apologetic constable, I experienced a strange mix of discovery and loss. The husband I thought I completely knew had kept secrets, some painful, others wonderfully beautiful. I now faced a decision, return to the security of my familiar life, or fully embrace this unexpected legacy and the accompanying struggle. I closed the door, returned to the desk, and opened the laptop again. The next day's video awaited, bringing with it more insights into the man I had loved and was only now truly starting to comprehend. Outside, the Mitchell brothers might have lost this initial skirmish, but their expressions as they departed made it clear the conflict for Maple Creek Farm had just begun. I spent that night in Joshua's, our farmhouse, surrounded by the evidence of his secret labor of love. Sleep evaded me, my mind preoccupied with the revelations, Joshua's hidden illness, the transformed farm, his brothers resolved to claim it, and the hundreds of video messages waiting on the laptop. At dawn, I began exploring the property properly. The main house was a marvel of restoration, successfully merging original farmhouse elements with contemporary comforts. Every room showed careful consideration of my preferences. From the library, stocked with first editions of my favorite novels, to the sunroom overlooking the eastern pastures, ideal for morning coffee. But it was the stables that truly astonished me. Just as Joshua's video promised, 6 magnificent horses occupied the immaculate stalls. There was an Andalusian, a Frisian, 2-quarter horses, a thoroughbred, and a gentle Appaloosa that softly neighed when I approached. Good morning greeted me, my king ma jump. A man in his early 60s emerged from the tack room, wiping his hands on a cloth. I'm Ellis. Your husband hired me to manage the stables. Catherine Mitchell, I replied, extending my hand, though I suspected he already knew. Ellis nodded, a gentle smile causing wrinkles around his eyes. Mr. Mitchell frequently mentioned you during his visits. He said you possessed a natural affinity for horses that he never managed to acquire. You knew my husband well? I asked. Ellis paused. As well as he permitted anyone to know him, I suppose. He was here every month for the past 3 years, personally supervising everything. He never delegated a decision if he could handle it himself. That description fit Joshua: methodical, hands-on, and focused on detail. Ellis continued, pointing towards a superb black stallion, watching us intently. The black Frisian there, that's Midnight. Your husband spent months specifically locating him. He mentioned the horse reminded him of a painting you loved. My heart tightened. The Stubbs painting of a black horse against a stormy sky. I had admired it at a museum 2 decades ago, and Joshua remembered. Did he? I hesitated, unsure how to phrase my question. Did my husband ever mention his health status to you? I asked. A shadow crossed Ellis's rugged face. Not directly. But over the last 6 months, he pushed himself harder, worked longer hours, adding more features to the property. He seemed like a man racing against a clock only visible to him. This confirmation hurt, but it explained the driven quality I had noticed in Joshua during his final months. I had mistakenly attributed it to work stress, never suspecting he was creating all of this while aware of his limited time. His brothers were here yesterday, I shared, carefully watching Ellis's reaction. His expression hardened. They've been circling since oil was found on adjacent properties. Suddenly, they are very interested in the family farm they hadn't visited in decades. What information can you give me about them? I inquired. Ellis secured a stall door before responding. Robert is the oldest. He runs an investment company in Toronto. He always behaved as if acknowledging Joshua was a favor. Alan is the middle brother, a lawyer, a smooth talker. And David is the youngest, following the finance path, always overshadowed by Robert. Their relationship with Joshua was strained that barely describes it. From what I gathered, they tormented him when he was a child. They were city boys who visited the farm reluctantly, looking down on him for staying to assist your father-in-law run the place. Ellis shook his head. When Joshua returned to purchase the property, they ridiculed him for wasting money on useless land. Right up until the Petersons discovered oil 2 properties away. This information matched the snippets Joshua had shared over the years, his difficult youth, his relocation to the United States for university, and his reluctance to discuss his Canadian relatives. They will return, I stated, partly to myself. Count on it, Ellis concurred grimly. But Mr. Mitchell prepared for that. He was always 3 steps ahead, returning to the house. I made myself eat breakfast before starting the laptop for the current day's video. Joshua appeared on the screen, sitting in what I now recognized as the farm's library. Good morning, Kat. I hope you slept well in our new home. He greeted me, flashing the crooked smile I intensely missed. Today, I want to show you something special, he announced. The camera moved as he carried it down a hallway I hadn't yet explored, stopping at a locked door. This room is exclusively for you. The key is in the top drawer of the bedside table, the antique silver, one with the horse engraving, he instructed. I paused the video, went to the master bedroom, and found the key precisely where he described. Following Joshua's path from the video, I located the door, unassuming and situated at the end of the east wing. The key turned effortlessly in the lock. I pushed the door open and gasped in astonishment. The large corner room was a fully equipped art studio, illuminated by perfect northern light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Easels, canvases, paints, and brushes, everything a painter could desire, were arranged with affectionate precision. I hadn't painted in 2 decades. After college, I had put aside my artistic ambitions to teach, helping to support us while Joshua developed his engineering career and we raised Jenna. Over the years, the dream of someday had faded into a distant hope, eventually becoming a wistful memory of a path not pursued. The video resumed, Joshua's voice drawing me back to the laptop I held. You sacrificed so much for us. Kat, your painting was the first sacrifice, though you never complained. I always vowed to myself that I would return it to you eventually. Tears filled my eyes as I surveyed the studio. The professional-grade supplies, the inspiring books neatly stacked, the north-facing windows providing ideal, consistent light. There is one additional item, Joshua continued. Check the cabinet positioned beneath the window seat, Joshua advised. I approached the cushioned window seat, which overlooked the eastern pasture, now golden in the morning light. Built into the wall, beneath it was a cabinet I likely would have overlooked without direction. Inside lay a flat archival box. With trembling hands, I lifted the lid and then sank to my knees in shock. My paintings, dozens of them, all the work I had created in college. Pieces I believed had been lost during our various moves over the years. Joshua had carefully preserved them, protected them, and kept them safe for 20 years until he could present them to me in this perfect environment. On top of the stack was a small canvas I instantly recognized, my final project before graduation. It was a self-portrait young woman looking ahead, her eyes bright with potential. Joshua had asked to keep it the day I finished it. Tucked next to it was a handwritten note in his precise script. It read, "She is still inside there. Kat, the woman who painted with such vision and passion. I have provided the space. The rest is up to you," the note concluded. I held the note tightly against my chest, overwhelmed equally by love and loss. Joshua had truly seen me in ways I hadn't allowed myself to be seen for years. The sound of vehicles on the gravel driveway interrupted this emotional moment. Moving to the studio window, I watched 2 cars approach. One was the familiar black SUV belonging to the Mitchell brothers, and the car behind it was a sleek silver Mercedes I immediately recognized. Jenna had arrived. Judging by how she stepped out of her car and confidently walked toward the brothers, it seemed they had already begun influencing her. My daughter, Joshua's daughter, possessing her father's dark hair and my stubborn jawline, was smiling and shaking hands with the uncles she had never encountered. Whatever fragile peace I had found in Joshua's posthumous gifts evaporated instantly in the face of this new complication. The conflict for Maple Creek Farm had just become significantly more personal. I observed from the window as Jenna exchanged pleasantries with her uncles, her demeanor open and welcoming. At 27, our daughter possessed her father's analytical mind and my resolve, but she lacked Joshua's patience and my caution. She had always been quick to form opinions and slow to revise them. My phone vibrated of others coming, no. We need to discuss things, Uncle Robert. They had known each other less than 24 hours, and she was already asserting a family connection. I placed Joshua's note in my pocket, locked the studio door, and went to confront this new partnership. They entered without knocking, Jenna using the privilege of a daughter, her uncles following her like predators behind an unwitting guide. "Mom," Jenna greeted me, embracing me briefly before stepping back, her eyes quickly taking in the impressive entryway. "This place is incredible. Why did Dad never inform us about it?" Before I could reply, Robert stepped forward. His resemblance to Joshua was acutely painful in the morning light. "Catherine, I believe we started poorly yesterday. We were surprised by your sudden appearance, just as you were surprised by ours," he stated. His conciliatory tone did not match the calculating look in his eyes. Next to him, Alan and David maintained carefully neutral expressions. Though I noticed Alan clutching a leather portfolio, which undoubtedly contained legal documentation. "Jenna," I said, entirely ignoring Robert, "I thought we agreed you would not engage with your father's brothers until we had a chance to speak." She blushed slightly. "They contacted me again this morning with a very reasonable proposal. I felt I should at least listen to them in person." Her chin lifted defiantly, displaying the same expression she used as a teenager challenging curfew. "Besides, they are also my family. Family you didn't know existed until yesterday," I gently reminded her. "That is only because Dad kept them hidden from us," she countered, "just like he kept this entire place a secret. Don't you find that suspicious?" What else was he concealing? The question hit uncomfortably close to the truths revealed in Joshua's videos. He had hidden his disease, his property purchase, and his restoration of my artistic dreams, but his motivations stemmed from love, not deception. "Your father had complex relationships with his brothers," I explained carefully. "He maintained distance for valid reasons." Robert dismissed this with a wave. "Ancient history. Siblings disagree, especially in challenging families like ours." What matters now is moving forward collaboratively. Exactly, Jenna agreed, with the sincerity of someone convinced of their reasonableness. Uncle Robert has clarified everything. This farm has been in the Mitchell family for generations. Dad bought it from Grandpa Mitchell, but it was always intended to be shared among the brothers eventually. I suppressed a sigh. They had been working on her for less than a day, and she was already repeating their version of events. And the sudden interest in the property has nothing to do with the oil discovery. I asked gently. Alan stepped forward, opening his portfolio. The mineral rights situation is merely one part of the complex legal landscape. We have drafted a fair settlement offer that respects Joshua S. wishes while acknowledging the Mitchell family S. historic claim to the property, Robert added, placing a paternal hand on Jenna's shoulder. We are prepared to be very generous. A 1/3 share for you, Catherine, 1/3 for Jenna, and 1/3 divided among us brothers. Everyone benefits. Jenna looked at me expectantly, clearly convinced by the proposal. It makes sense, Mom. We don't require this huge place. We could sell everything, walk away with millions, and Dad's family remains unified. Your father specifically bequeathed this property to me, I stated, locking eyes with Robert. That was due to confusion and misguided sentiment, Robert smoothly countered. Joshua was not thinking clearly during his final years. A flicker of anger surged through me. My husband was perfectly sane until the day he died, I retorted. Then why all the secrecy? David asked for the first time. His voice was softer than his brother's, but equally pointed. Why conceal the property purchase from his wife and daughter? Why the elaborate arrangements with the lawyer? These are not the actions of a rational man. I considered the videos. The restored farm, the art studio, each item, meticulously planned as a final tribute. Nothing about it suggested confusion or compromised judgment. Mom, Jenna interjected, her voice now softer. I know this is difficult. Dad left both of us, and now we are uncovering all these secrets, but this offer is financially sound. We would both be set for life. The door behind them opened, and Ellis appeared, looking concerned. Is everything acceptable, Mrs. Mitchell? Ellis inquired. I noticed the vehicles arriving. The brothers turned, clearly irritated by the interruption. Robert narrowed his eyes. This is a private, family discussion. Ellis is my employee, I stated firmly. He is welcome in my home. Actually, Alan interjected. His employment status is among the disputed assets awaiting resolution of our legal claim. Ellis maintained his position. Mr. Mitchell hired me personally, made me promise to look after the property and Mrs. Mitchell, should anything happen to him. We will be reviewing all staff appointments, Robert said dismissively. I felt I had heard enough. I believe it is time for you to leave. All of you! I pointedly looked at the brothers, then softened my gaze toward Jenna. Except you, of course. You are always welcome to remain. You're not even considering their offer. Jenna asked incredulously. I will review any written proposal with my own legal counsel, I replied. But I will not be pressured inside my own residence. Robert's facade of conciliation broke, revealing the ruthless businessman beneath. This property is worth tens of millions, considering the oil rights. We can resolvely, complicately. Is that a threat? I asked, with more composure than I felt. A dose of reality, he corrected. You are a high school teacher from Minnesota, facing a legal battle against opponents with vastly superior resources. Joshua may have meant well, but he placed you in an untenable position. I recalled the blue folder with its meticulous evidence. The videos showing Joshua's clear planning, the transformed property representing his ultimate act of love. I believe my husband knew precisely what he was doing, I stated calmly. Now, please depart. Jenna, you are welcome to stay for lunch if you wish. She looked conflicted, glancing between me and her newly found uncles. I think I will leave with them for now. We have more to discuss. She quickly kissed my cheek. Think carefully about the offer. Mom, please. I watched them leave, a hollow sensation expanding in my chest. In barely 24 hours, my daughter had been drawn into the circle of men Joshua had spent his life avoiding. Whatever they were telling her was proving effective, evident in her receptive attitude and quick adoption of their viewpoint. Ellis waited until their vehicles had disappeared down the driveway before speaking. Mrs. Mitchell, there is something you need to know. Something your husband instructed me not to mention unless absolutely necessary. I turned toward him, mentally weary, but forcing myself to concentrate. What is it? It concerns the true scope of the property and what is truly hidden here. He gestured toward the stables. We should take a walk. Some things should not be discussed indoors where walls might overhear, as I followed him across the yard. The morning sun illuminated the beautiful farm my husband had secretly created. Whatever revelation awaited me, I was certain of one thing. Joshua had anticipated this impending conflict. Perhaps he had even foreseen Jenna's susceptibility to his brother's manipulation. The question was whether he had prepared me adequately to win a fight I had unknown was coming. Ellis guided me past the primary stables toward a worn barn I had not yet investigated. Unlike the newly renovated structures on the property, this building maintained its original rustic appearance, deliberately left unimproved to appear insignificant. Your husband was an extremely careful man, Ellis remarked, producing an old iron key. After his brother's first visit last year, he became even more cautious. They visited before? Joshua never mentioned that, I noted. Ellis nodded grimly. They showed up unannounced once they heard rumors of the oil discovery on adjacent properties. Your husband was here supervising the construction of the art studio. They didn't recognize him initially. He had grown a beard during his treatment. The casual reference to Joshua's treatment sent a fresh wave of grief through me. While I was obliviously teaching high school literature in Minnesota, my husband had been here, ill, constructing this sanctuary while simultaneously fending off his predatory brothers. What occurred? I asked. He observed them from a distance, then left without revealing his presence. That evening, he altered the property plans. Ellis recounted. Ellis unlocked the barn door. Starting with this, he said. The door swung open to reveal an ordinary barn interior. Hay bales, old farming equipment, and dust particles dancing in the sunlight filtering through gaps in the walls. Ellis confidently moved to the back corner, shifting several bales to expose a trapdoor set into the dirt floor. Your husband installed this entrance last winter. The workers believed they were building a root cellar. He pulled the heavy door upwards, revealing a strong wooden staircase descending into darkness. After you, Mrs. Mitchell, Ellis offered. Overcoming my apprehension, with curiosity, I followed Ellis down the stairs. I'd the bottom, is Flitch Mini Tunnel Cockacree extend to the earth. What is this location? I asked. Your husband referred to it as insurance. I call it brilliant, Ellis replied. Ellis motioned for me to follow him down the tunnel. The Mitchell brothers think they understand the full extent of the property and its worth. They are mistaken. The tunnel extended about 50 yards before opening into a spacious concrete room filled with filing cabinets, a desk with computer hardware, and walls covered in maps and documents. Welcome to Joshua's war room, Ellis announced, a hint of pride in his voice. Everything he gathered about his brothers, their financial activities, and the actual value of Maple Creek Farm is here. I approached the nearest wall, where a detailed survey map was pinned, showing the farm and surrounding properties for miles. Red markings indicated oil deposit locations, accompanied by handwritten notes detailing depth, quality, and extraction difficulties. I do not understand, I said, turning to Ellis. Joshua was aware of the oil, not originally. He bought this place purely to renovate it for you. But about 18 months ago, when the Petersons' land showed oil, he secretly hired geologists to survey Maple Creek. Ellis pointed at the map. They found something unexpected. The largest deposit is not located under the eastern section where everyone else is drilling. It is here, under the western acres that appear worthless. I examined the map more closely, noting the concentration of red markings on the rugged, seemingly unusable portion of the property stretching into the foothills land Robert hadn't even mentioned in his proposed division. The oil company surveys missed it because the geological formation is unusual, deeper, and shaped differently than they anticipated, Ellis elaborated. Your husband confirmed it with 3 independent specialists, making them swear to secrecy. So, The property is even more valuable than his brothers realize. Exponentially. But that is not all, Ellis added. Ellis moved toward a filing cabinet and retrieved a thick folder. Joshua meticulously documented decades of questionable business practices by all three brothers. Tax evasion, insider trading, misuse of client funds, enough evidence to professionally ruin them if it ever surfaced. I went through the detailed documentation, recognizing Joshua's thorough approach to problem solving. There were printouts of emails, financial records, and notarized statements from former staff. He had constructed an undeniable case against his brothers. Why did he collect all this for protection? I asked. Ellis sat at the desk, inviting me to take the other chair. He knew they would pursue the farm once he was gone. He wanted you to possess leverage. I recalled Robert's smug demeanor, Alan's legal maneuvering, and their quick action, turning Jenna against me. He anticipated everything, I concluded. Not absolutely everything, Ellis corrected quietly. He didn't foresee them reaching your daughter so quickly. The reminder of Jenna's apparent betrayal stung. They are manipulating her with partial truths and promises of wealth, exploiting her grief, Ellis commented. She suddenly lost her father. They are offering a connection to him through shared heritage and history. That is a powerful pull for a young woman mourning her dad. He was correct. Jenna had always been her father's favorite, sharing Joshua's analytical intellect and love for complexities. His passing had left her unsettled, vulnerable to anyone offering a link back to him. What should I do now? I questioned, partly to myself. That is continued Elis responded. You could sell everything, property, oil rights, the entire package, and walk away rich, but possibly permanently separated from your daughter. You could legally fight the brothers using this leverage, which might secure the victory, but worsen family conflict. Or, what? I pressed. You could do as your husband always did. Think 3 moves ahead. And find the solution no one expects. I considered this while continuing to examine the war room. On the desk there was a framed photograph I had never seen before. Joshua, as a teenager, standing proudly beside a magnificent chestnut horse, his face radiant with an innocent joy I had seldom witnessed in the man I married. That is Phoenix, Ellis explained, noting where my focus lay. Your husband's horse when he was a boy. The only positive thing in his childhood here, from what he told me. His brothers sold the animal, while Joshua was away at school, just to hurt him. Another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Joshua's support for my love of horses, despite his lack of personal interest. The 6 magnificent animals in the stable were more than a mere gift. They were his way of reclaiming something precious his brothers had stolen from him. I picked up the photograph, and a strategy began forming in my mind. Ellis, does the laptop with Joshua's videos function down here? I asked. He nodded. There is a secure Wi-Fi network running throughout the property. Your husband made certain of that. Good. I need to view the next few videos sooner than planned. Then I require you to arrange a meeting for me, I instructed. With whom? Ellis asked. First, my daughter alone, away from her uncles. Then, my attorney. And finally, I glanced at the wall displaying the evidence Joshua had collected against his brothers. I believe I would like to speak with those representatives from the oil company who have been submitting offers for the property. As Tylee's led the secret bunker. You are planning something your husband would undoubtedly approve of. I am planning something worthy of the man who loved me enough to create all of this, I corrected, my voice steady with new determination. And I will require your assistance, whatever you need, Ellis promised. Your husband saved my life years ago. He provided me this job when no one else would give a chance to an ex-convict trying to restart his life. I owe him everything, and by extension, I owe you. This revealed yet another aspect of Joshua I hadn't known. His quiet generosity extended beyond our immediate family, altering lives I hadn't even heard about. As we exited the bunker, carefully disguising the entrance again, I felt a peculiar sense of ongoing partnership with my late husband, rather than the grief that had consumed the recent weeks. He had bequeathed me not only material assets and security, but also the tools and understanding to forge my own future. The Mitchell brothers believed they were facing an unsuspecting widow out of her depth. They had no inkling of what was coming. Over the subsequent 48 hours, I barely slept, fueled instead by resolve and the increasing clarity of my strategy. I watched a full week's worth of Joshua's videos in a single night, each revealing more of his planning and profound foresight. They will attempt to divide and conquer, he warned in one recording, sounding as if he were addressing my current dilemma directly. Robert will serve as the friendly face, Alan the legal threat, David the quiet observer, and they will target Jenna. She represents their easiest route to destabilizing your position, he explained. In another video, he toured the western part of the property. The supposedly valueless acres his brothers had intentionally excluded from their proposition. This land looks insignificant. Cat, scrubby hills, rocky terrain, difficult accessibility. That is precisely why it is perfect. No one closely scrutinizes what appears worthless. Armed with Joshua's insights and my rapidly growing comprehension of the situation, I arranged to meet Jenna at a small cafe in the nearest town, 20 miles from the farm. This was neutral territory, away from both the Mitchell brothers' influence and the emotional pull of Joshua's sanctuary. She arrived 15 minutes late, adopting a defensive posture even before sitting down. I cannot stay long. Uncle Robert is taking me to meet the family attorney this afternoon, she stated. Oncle Robert eyed gently. You have become quite close in 3 days, she flushed. They have been nothing but welcoming and kind, which is more than I can say for you. You are treating them like adversaries instead of Dad's family. I sipped my coffee, carefully selecting my next words. Do you recall the art history class you took during your sophomore year? The professor discussed perspective, how your vantage point, fundamentally, alters what you perceive. What relevance does that have now? She asked. You have only heard their perspective on this matter. I am asking you to consider that there might be another point of view. Your father's, I explained. Dad is deceased, she said bluntly, sadness flashing across her face, and he obviously didn't trust either of us enough to tell us about this location while he was alive. I reached into my bag and produced a tablet. Actually, he left something for both of us. What is that? She asked. Your father created videos, Jenna. Hundreds of them, messages intended to guide me us after. He was gone. I turned the tablet toward her. Opening the specific video Joshua had labeled for Jenna when she needs it. Her face paled. He created videos. He knew he was dying. I revealed softly, finally speaking the truth. He was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy 3 years ago. He chose not to inform us. He wanted to spare us the pain of watching him deteriorate. That is impossible. He would have told me, she insisted, though uncertainty had entered her tone. Watch the video, Jenna, hear it from him, I urged. With trembling fingers, she pressed play. Joshua's face appeared, looking healthy and full of life, his eyes crinkling with his unique smile. Hello, my brilliant daughter. If you are viewing this, I am gone, and knowing you, you are likely upset about all the secrets I kept, he said, giving a soft chuckle. You never enjoyed being kept unaware of anything, even as a toddler. Tears began welling in Jenna's eyes as her father continued speaking. I should have informed you I was ill. I should have given you time to prepare, to ask all those thorough questions you excel at asking, but I acted selfishly. I wanted our final years together to be normal, not overshadowed by my medical diagnosis. I hope you can forgive me for that decision someday, he said. Joshua shifted, leaning closer to the camera. But there is another piece of information you require, something about my brothers that I have never disclosed to you. Our estrangement was not a trivial family disagreement, Jenna. They embezzled my share of our father's estate when I was 19. They utilized my name on forged documents while I was away at college. When I uncovered this and threatened to expose them, they threatened to implicate me as a willing participant. Jenna covered her mouth with her hand. Her gaze fixed on the screen. I left Canada. I slightly changed my name from Jonathan to Joshua and began anew in Minnesota. I met your mother, established a life, and raised you. It was more than sufficient. His expression hardened. But my brothers never changed. Whatever they are telling you now, remember this crucial point. They have desired control of the family property for decades. Not out of sentimental attachment, but she agreed. And they will use anyone, including my own daughter, to achieve it, Joshua concluded. The video ended, freezing on his concerned expression. Jenna sat motionless, tears quietly flowing down her cheeks. He was protecting us, she finally whispered. From more than just his illness, I gently confirmed. Your uncles are not the family connection they claim to be. They are opportunists who view you as the easiest route to obtaining what they seek. She wiped her tears, anger replacing her grief. They have been lying to me, haven't they, about everything? She asked. Not everything. The farm is indeed worth millions. That much is true. But they haven't disclosed the western section they conveniently excluded from their proposal. Or the true scope of the oil deposits situated there. Understanding dawned in her eyes. They are attempting to defraud us. Us? I repeated, a flicker of hope rising. Does that indicate you are back on my side? I asked. Mum, I never abandoned your side. I just double quote. She paused, looking ashamed. I wanted to feel linked to Dad through his family. They had stories about him as a child, photos I had never encountered. I comprehend, I reassured her, reaching across the table to clasp her hand. Grief renders us vulnerable in ways we cannot predict. But now we must be smarter than they are. Jenna straightened up, her expression transforming from devastation to resolve, so much like her father that my heart ached. What is the next step? She asked. I smiled, feeling the first genuine sense of confidence since Joshua's death. First, we are meeting with my attorney this evening. Not the family attorney your uncles prefer, but someone recommended by Joshua's lawyer in Minnesota. Tomorrow we have Minstern Plains, mein Plainji. Why? Jenna asked. Because knowledge is power. And right now, we possess information your uncles lack. Precisely where the oil is situated and the actual amount present, I confirmed, showing her the geological surveys from Joshua's secret war room. They assume they are dealing with an unaware widow and a gullible niece. It is time to demonstrate exactly who they are truly up against. For the first time since her father's passing, Jenna genuinely laughed. Dad always maintained you were the most intelligent person he had ever met. That beneath the quiet high school teacher exterior was a strategic mastermind capable of outthinking anyone if sufficiently motivated. Did he truly say that? I asked, surprised. Constantly, she smiled, wiping away the remaining tears. He also said that the gravest error anyone could make was underestimating Catherine Mitchell. As we left the cafe together, I felt a distinct shift in the dynamic of this conflict. The Mitchell brothers had unintentionally united us rather than dividing us. They had no idea that their apparent initial success with Jenna had only set the stage for their eventual defeat. Later that evening, with Jenna by my side, I presented my complete strategy to the attorney Joshua had chosen for this precise situation. His expression shifted from professional curiosity to undisguised admiration as he comprehended the full scope of my plan. Mrs. Mitchell, he finally remarked, your husband claimed you would surprise me with your strategic thinking. He was absolutely correct. My husband, I replied, was correct about many things, including, it seems, his confidence in my ability to not only endure his death, but to emerge stronger from the trial of grief and betrayal. The Mitchell brothers arrived at Maple Creek Farm exactly when expected, 10 o'clock a.m. sharp. 3 days after my meeting with Jenna, the black SUV approached the gravel driveway with the confidence of men who considered victory a mere formality. Following them was a silver Mercedes I didn't recognize, likely their attorney or financial advisor. I observed from the great room window. I was dressed not in the casual attire they had previously seen, but in a tailored suit I had specifically acquired for this meeting. Appearances are crucial when orchestrating a coup, and I intended to present myself not as a mourning widow, but as the formidable adversary Joshua had always known me to be. They are here, I called to Jenna. She emerged from the kitchen, looking equally professional in a dark blue dress, prominently displaying her father's watch, one of his most cherished belongings, on her wrist. Ready? She asked, her expression a mix of nervousness and determination. Completely, I replied, squeezing her hand. Remember, allow them to talk themselves into a compromising position. First, Ellis appeared from the back of the house. The others have arrived through the service entrance. They are prepared in the dining room, as you requested. I nodded in appreciation. Perfect timing. The doorbell rang, and Ellis moved to open it with the professional respect of a caretaker, fully aware of his role in this meticulously planned performance. Good morning, gentlemen. Mrs. Mitchell and Miss Jenner anticipate your arrival. This way, please. I heard him greet them. They entered with the easy self-entitlement of men accustomed to dominating spaces. Robert led, followed by Alan with his perpetual legal portfolio, and David brought up the rear. Behind them walked a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, radiating corporate authority. Catherine, Robert nodded in acknowledgement, his smile not reaching his eyes. We appreciate you consenting to this meeting. This is Harrison Wells, CEO of Northern Extraction. We thought it would be beneficial to have an industry expert join our discussion regarding the property's potential. So, they had brought an oil executive to try and intimidate me with industry jargon and market assessments. Predictable. How considerate. I responded pleasantly. I have prepared the dining room for our discussion. Shall we proceed? Première escade. I led them through the house, noting their appraising looks at the renovations Joshua had completed. In the formal dining room, a large table was set with documents placed at each setting. Along with water carafes and coffee, serviced the image of professional readiness. Please be seated. I gestured. I believe we have much to cover. As they settled into their chairs, still exuding confidence, I remained standing at the head of the table. Before we commence, I stated, I want to express my gratitude for your previous proposal. It was quite informative. Robert's smile broadened, clearly misinterpreting my comment as surrender. We are pleased you have had time to consider our offer. With Mr. Wells' expertise, we can discuss the most advantageous arrangement for dividing the property's assets. Yes, division, I mused, picking up a remote control from the table. That is precisely what I intend to discuss. I pressed a button and a hidden screen descended from the ceiling at the far end of the room. The brothers exchanged startled glances. Clearly, they had not anticipated this level of preparation. If you would focus your attention on the presentation, I continued, clicking the remote again. A detailed map of Maple Creek Farm appeared on the screen, showing property boundaries, geographical features, and geological formations. This represents the comprehensive survey of Maple Creek, I explained. All 2,200 acres, not just the eastern 800 acres mentioned in your proposal. Alan shifted uncomfortably. The western section is suitable for developed rocky terrain. We excluded it merely for simplicity. How thoughtful, I smiled. Except for one minor detail. Another click overlaid the map with oil deposit locations. This was the complete geological survey from Joshua's war room, showing the massive reserve located beneath the supposedly worthless western acres. Harrison Wells abruptly sat upright in his chair, his professional composure vanishing as he leaned forward, studying the projection with sudden, intense focus. As you can clearly observe, I continued calmly, the primary oil deposit extends predominantly beneath the western section. The acres you so generously suggested excluding from our fair division. Robert's face flushed deeply. These surveys are unreliable. Northern Extraction's analysis indicates, double quotes. Actually, a new voice interrupted as the connecting door opened. Those surveys have been independently verified by 3 geological teams, the Mitchell brothers. Turned in shock as Thomas Reeves, CEO of Western Plains Energy Northern Extraction's main competitor, entered the room, followed by my attorney and to other individuals in business attire. What is the meaning of this? Forbade demanded from his seat. This, I stated pleasantly, is a meeting concerning the true value and future of Maple Creek Farm. Mr. Reeves has expressed significant enthusiasm for the property's potential, particularly after reviewing the comprehensive geological data my husband accumulated. I finished. Harrison Wells shot a look of betrayal toward the Mitchell brothers. You assured me you held exclusive negotiating rights to this property, he stated. They do not, My attorney smoothly interjected, placing additional documents onto the table. Mrs. Mitchell holds clear, uncontested ownership of the entire property, including all mineral rights. The documents presented to you by the Mitchell brothers possess no legal validity whatsoever. Robert slammed his hand onto the table. This property has been part of the Mitchell family for generations. Joshua had a moral obligation. Moral obligations. Jenna spoke for the first time, her voice firm despite her white-knuckled grip on her water glass. Like the moral obligation you owed my father when you stole his inheritance, or forged his signature on loan documents, or threatened to involve him in your financial crimes if he exposed you, Jenna asked. The brothers froze, their faces drained of color. What exactly is she referring to? Harrison, Wells inquired, looking increasingly unsettled. Perhaps these will clarify the situation, I suggested, nodding to my attorney. He distributed sealed envelopes to everyone seated at the table. These were copies of documentation my husband had preserved concerning specific historical transactions involving Mitchell family assets. I believe the statute of limitations may have expired on some of these issues, but the Canadian financial regulatory authorities might still find others quite interesting, I commented. Alan opened his envelope, scanning the contents with rising alarm. These are private family matters, he sputtered, completely irrelevant to the current discussion. On the contrary, I countered, finally taking my seat at the head of the table. They establish a pattern of fraudulent conduct that directly impacts your trustworthiness in these negotiations. Behavior that persisted when you deliberately misled Mr. Wells about your authority to negotiate for this property. Silence enveloped the room as the Mitchell brothers grasped the full extent of their exposure. Joshua had documented everything, their past transgressions against him, their recent manipulations, and their attempts to seize valuable assets while pretending generosity. What exactly do you demand? Robert finally asked, his confident demeanor shattered. I require you to vacate Maple Creek Farm and never return, I stated plainly. I require you to cease all attempts to dispute my ownership or manipulate my daughter. In exchange, these documents will remain private, accessible only to the people currently in this room. Harrison Wells abruptly stood up. I believe my company's involvement in this affair has been predicated on incomplete and potentially deceptive information. If you will excuse me, Mrs. Mitchell, I will contact you directly regarding any future discussions about mineral rights, he stated. He shot a look of disgust at the brothers before leaving. Robert's expression hardened as he watched his oil company ally depart. You have no understanding of what you are doing, Catherine. The costs for extraction in the western section are prohibitive. The logistics alone, double quotes. Actually, Thomas Reeves interrupted. Western Plains has developed new extraction technology specifically suitable for these particular geological formations. We are prepared to present Mrs. Mitchell with an offer that acknowledges both the challenges and the exceptional potential of this property. As the meeting proceeded, transitioning from the Mitchell brothers' intended takeover into my carefully executed counteroffensive, I glanced at Jenna across the table. Her slight smile communicated everything: pride, vindication, and the poignant acknowledgement that Joshua had prepared us for this moment even from beyond his death. By the time the Mitchell brothers left 2 hours later defeated, exposed, and legally bound by the settlement agreement my attorney had prepared in advance, the future of Maple Creek Farm was secured exactly as Joshua had foreseen. It was not divided among greedy relatives, nor sold to the highest bidder, but preserved as a legacy for the family he had chosen and cherished, Jenna and me. As the vehicles vanished down the driveway, Ellis appeared beside me. Your husband would be immensely proud, he said quietly. You outmaneuvered them precisely as he believed you could. I watched the dust settle on the driveway, feeling a strange mixture of emotions: triumph mixed with grief, strength emerging from vulnerability. We are not finished yet, I responded, considering the videos still awaiting me on Joshua's laptop and the future stretching ahead. This was merely the initial skirmish, but it was one we won decisively. Utilizing weapons Joshua had painstakingly prepared and drawing upon the inner strength he had always seen in me. Even when I failed to see it myself, the weeks following the Mitchell brothers' defeat moved quickly, occupied by practical matters. There were legal documents finalizing our settlement, meetings with Western Plains Energy to structure a mutually beneficial extraction agreement, and a careful inventory of everything Joshua had created at Maple Creek Farm. Jenna remained with me throughout. Her initial anger about her father's secrecy evolving into deep appreciation for his foresight. We established a routine of watching his daily videos together each morning, both of us finding comfort and direction in his posthumous presence. "Did you have any indication at all?" Jenna inquired one evening as we sat on the porch watching the sun descend behind the western hills containing our newfound wealth. "Any suspicion that Dad was ill or planning all this?" I carefully considered the question, searching my memories for overlooked signs. There were minor things that now make sense in hindsight. His insistence on updating our wills 3 years ago, the way he would sometimes look at us during dinner, almost memorizing our faces, his sudden interest in photographing mundane moments. "I thought he was simply experiencing a midlife appreciation phase," Jenna said, smiling sadly. "In a way, he was," I responded, "just not for the reasons we assumed." I sipped my tea, recalling the biggest change, the way he stopped procrastinating. "Your father always put off personal matters until someday we would take that European trip. Someday he would learn to sail. Someday we would renovate the kitchen. 10 Sudan with things like acquiring this property." Jenna, "Creating something enduring." Precisely. I agreed. I attributed it to him finally feeling financially secure enough to pursue some dreams. I shook my head, still processing the immensity of what he had kept hidden. I never imagined he was in a race against time, building a legacy because he knew he would not be here to witness its maturity. The representatives from Western Plains Energy were stunned when I presented my conditions for accessing the oil beneath our land. Instead of selling the mineral rights outright for a lump sum, as most landowners did, I insisted on a structured agreement prioritizing environmental protection, employing sustainable extraction techniques, and establishing a substantial trust for restoration once the oil was depleted. Mrs. Mitchell, their lead negotiator, had commented, "These terms are highly unusual within the industry. Then perhaps the industry requires more unusual terms," I had countered, channeling Joshua's quiet self-assurance. "The oil has been present for millions of years. It can remain there until we agree upon responsible methods for its retrieval," I declared. Tommy Surprise Treve was a zeroed rather than scurried prode. "Your husband mentioned you majored in environmental science before switching to literature," he noted. "He said you would insist on doing this correctly, not just profitably." Another element of Joshua's planning was revealed. He had clearly communicated with carefully selected industry leaders, establishing the groundwork for the negotiations he knew would follow his death. 1 month after successfully claiming my inheritance, I stood inside the art studio Joshua had created. Sunlight streaming through the north-facing windows, illuminating a blank canvas on the easel. After decades away from painting, I had finally picked up a brush again, initially hesitantly, then with increasing confidence. Today's subject patiently waited in the paddock, visible through the studio windows. The subject was Midnight, the magnificent Frisian stallion Joshua had acquired because it reminded him of a painting I had admired 20 years earlier. Alice had been teaching me to write again. My middle-aged body protested initially, but then adjusted to the forgotten rhythms of horsemanship. Mom, Jenna appeared in the doorway, laptop in hand. "Today's video is different. I think you should view it privately." I set down my paintbrush, curious. We had established a ritual of watching Joshua's daily messages together during breakfast, finding comfort in the shared experience. "How is it different?" I asked. "It is specifically labeled for month 2, day 15. He titled it. "When Catherine starts painting again," she explained. She handed me the computer with a soft smile. "He knew you would eventually return to it." Alone in the studio, surrounded by the tools of the passion I was rediscovering, I opened the laptop and pressed play. Joshua appeared, Seated in this exact room, before any art supplies were installed, the space empty except for the magnificent windows. "Hello, my dearest," he began, his smile intimate and warm. "If you are viewing this, you have rediscovered your art, returned to the passion you set aside for our family all those years ago." I gently touched the screen, tears rising in my eyes. "I have been contemplating legacy extensively," he continued. "What we leave behind, the impact we make on the world. Most people conceive of legacy in terms of wealth, children, or accomplishments. But there exists another form of legacy, the fostering of possibility in those we love." He gestured toward the bare room around him. "This area is not yet complete, but in my imagination, I see it finished, filled with light, color, and your creations. Ein visuals abbrachinand. Finally giving form to the visions you have carried within you for years." I glanced at the half-finished portrait of Midnight on my easel, struck by how closely it matched Joshua's imagination. "I have organized everything to grant you freedom, Kat," he continued. "Financial, security through the oil rights, protection from my brother's interference, a beautiful place to create. But what you choose to do with that freedom, that is your legacy to construct, not mine to dictate." He leaned closer to the camera, his expression intense. "The inheritance is not the farm, the horses, or the art studio. They are merely the instruments. The true inheritance is possibility. The opportunity to become more fully yourself without limitations." I paused the video, overwhelmed by the depth of his understanding. Joshua had known me better than I knew myself, recognizing the dormant artist still residing within the devoted mother and practical teacher I had become. When I resumed the video, his expression had softened again. "I have one specific request, although it is entirely yours to accept or decline. In the storage closet located behind this room is a large canvas I commissioned before my diagnosis. It is blank, waiting. When you are ready, truly ready, I hope you will create something for it. Something that captures not only what you observe, but what you feel about this location, that both brought me back to my origins and will propel you into your future." The video ended with his familiar farewell. "Until tomorrow, my love." I sat still for several minutes, absorbing his message. Then, moved by sudden impulse, I went to the storage closet and found precisely what he had described, an enormous blank canvas custom-built for the prominent wall in the great room. It was the perfect size for creating a statement piece, a central focus for the heart of the home Joshua had created. Over the ensuing weeks, as autumn painted the landscape in vibrant colors, I sketched countless preliminary designs, attempting to capture the essence of Maple Creek Farm and its meaning. None felt right until one morning, watching Jenna ride Midnight across the eastern meadow, something finally clicked. The painting developed gradually. It was not a conventional landscape, but a fusion of real and symbolic elements. The farm, depicted as it currently stood, occupied the background, rendered with detailed accuracy. In the foreground, a series of translucent layers showed the past, the abandoned property Joshua had acquired, the family farm of his childhood. And beneath it all, the ancient land that had witnessed generations pass. Threaded through these temporal layers were two figures on horseback, a man and a woman. Their features indistinct enough to represent both specific individuals and universal journeys. Behind them, barely noticeable unless one knew to look, was a third figure, a young woman forging her own path forward. When the artwork was finally complete, Ellis assisted me in hanging it in its designated place in the great room. Jenna stepped back, examining it with tears in her eyes. "It is him, isn't it? And you, and me." She traced the rider's paths with her finger. "The past, present, and future of this place, legacy," I simply stated. "Not what is left behind, but what continues forward." That evening, as I watched the sunset from the porch of what was now definitively my home, I felt Joshua's presence not as a memory or a phantom, but as a continuing collaboration. He had provided me not just material stability, but a foundation for reinvention. The freedom to discover the person Catherine Mitchell could become without the constraints of circumstance. The oil would ensure financial security for future generations. The farm would evolve based on our careful management, and I would continue bringing beauty into the world through my newly recovered talents. constructing my own legacy alongside the one Joshua had so meticulously prepared. The video for the next day waited on the laptop inside, another moment of connection and guidance across the boundary separating us. But increasingly, I found myself anticipating the future rather than dwelling on the past. Thankful for his foresight, yet eager to write the upcoming chapters of this unexpected narrative myself. The Forbidden Farm had transformed into sacred ground. It was no longer a location of pain and secrets, as Joshua had once known it, but a sanctuary of opportunity, his final and greatest gift to me. Winter arrived at Maple Creek Farm with dramatic splendor. Pristine, snow blanketed the rolling pastures, ice crystals formed delicate designs on the windows, and smoke curled from the stone chimney into the crisp Alberta air. I had opted to remain through the season instead of returning to Minnesota. Compelled to experience the full cycle of seasons on this land that had become my unexpected residence. Jenna had reluctantly gone back to her life in Minneapolis. Her marketing firm was unwilling to grant her an indefinite extension of her leave. Our daily video ritual persisted via FaceTime. The three of us remained connected, Jenna in her urban apartment, me in the farmhouse living room, and Joshua's recorded presence bridging the distance of time and space. The western hills are especially beautiful after a fresh layer of snow, Joshua remarked in today's video, filmed exactly 1 year ago in the same room. If Ellis has maintained the snowmobile in the equipment barn, take it up to the ridge overlooking the valley. The view at sunrise makes the early wake-up worthwhile. I smiled, amused by his continued ability to anticipate my experiences. Only yesterday, Ellis had mentioned the snowmobile and offered to show me the winter trails Joshua had mapped across the property. 6 months had passed since my confrontation with the Mitchell brothers. True to the settlement agreement, they had kept their distance, although my attorney occasionally forwarded correspondence from their legal team. These were technical inquiries regarding property boundaries, as Western Plains Energy initiated preliminary work on the eastern boundary of the farm. The oil extraction project was progressing with deliberate caution. The company was honoring our unusual arrangement that prioritized environmental protection over fast profit. Thomas Reeves had become an unanticipated ally. His initial business interest gradually evolved into genuine respect for the sustainable method Joshua had conceived and I had insisted upon. Me fun are my thoughts. Jenna's name flashed on the screen. Is everything all right? I answered immediately, concerned by the unexpected call, as our daily video chat was scheduled hours later. I'm uncertain, she replied, her voice strained. I just had a strange visit from Uncle David. My grip tightened on the phone. David, what did he want? Officially, he came to apologize for his involvement in attempting to manipulate me against you, she explained. She paused. But something felt wrong about the whole conversation. He kept asking subtle questions about the farm, whether I visited frequently, if I had observed any unusual activity around the property. Did you reveal anything? I asked. Of course no non-commiters lowered. Mom, I suspect they are plotting something. This felt like reconnaissance. A chill unrelated to the winter temperature went through me. The Mitchell brothers had been suspiciously quiet in recent months. Perhaps too quiet for men accustomed to fighting relentlessly for what they wanted. I will inform Ellis and step up security, I assured her. And I will have my attorney remind theirs of the terms of our agreement. There is something else, Jenna added hesitantly. David mentioned that Robert has been ill. Some heart condition requiring surgery. He tried to evoke my sympathy, suggesting that family should unite during difficult periods. The same heart condition that had taken Joshua, the genetic hypertrophic cardiomyopathy inherited from his father. I wondered if Robert had hidden his diagnosis from his brothers, just as Joshua had concealed his from us. Be cautious, Jenna. This could be a genuine situation, or it might be another manipulative tactic. That is what I suspected. She sighed. I hate having to be suspicious of every interaction with Dad's family. It should not be like this. After ending the call, I went to the window, overlooking the snow-covered driveway, feeling uneasy. The Mitchell brothers had proven themselves deceitful and ruthless. Their seeming retreat might only be a strategic regrouping. I immediately contacted Ellis, relaying Jenna's concerns. His reaction was typically calm but resolute. I will alert the security personnel and inspect the perimeter surveillance, he promised. We installed those systems precisely for this kind of scenario. This was another of Joshua's precautions. Discreet but extensive security across the property, with cameras monitoring all entry points and motion sensors covering the most vulnerable approaches. At the time, I had deemed it excessive. Now, I was grateful for his foresight. That evening, I found myself drawn, seeking guidance from Joshua's meticulously organized files. If the Mitchell brothers were planning another attempt to claim Maple Creek Farm, perhaps he had foreseen this possibility as well. In the concrete room, filled with maps and filing cabinets, I searched for anything related to continued threats following the settlement. In the bottom drawer of Joshua's desk, I discovered a folder simply marked "If they return" in his precise handwriting. Inside was a detailed contingency plan outlining steps to take if his brothers violated the agreement. This included pre-drafted legal injunctions, contact details for Canadian authorities who had investigated their past financial dealings, and surprisingly, a sealed letter addressed to Robert Mitchell. A note in Joshua's handwriting was paper-clipped to the envelope. It read, "A last resort, only deliver if absolutely necessary." What had my husband written to his estranged older brother that he considered so potentially devastating or powerful that it should only be utilized in an extreme circumstance? The envelope remained sealed. The tension posed a final mystery Joshua had left for me to solve only if the circumstances demanded it. I returned to the main house, the sealed letter safely tucked in my pocket, my mind analyzing strategies and possibilities. Outside, a gentle snowfall resumed, adding another flawless layer to the winter scenery. The next morning, Ellis knocked on my door, just as I finished breakfast. "We have unexpected visitors," he announced, his expression serious. "All three Mitchell brothers, plus two men I do not recognize. They are at the gate," he nodded. "They are requesting entrance." Robert claims it is a personal, family matter unrelated to the property dispute. I moved to the great room window, which provided a distant view of the entrance gates. Two vehicles were waiting there, the familiar black SUV and a less conspicuous sedan. "What do you believe they truly want?" I asked Ellis. "Nothing positive," he replied bluntly. "But refusing to meet them might provoke whatever they are planning. It is better to manage the encounter on our terms." I considered this, my hand subconsciously touching the letter in my pocket. "Instruct security to remain vigilant, but out of sight. Permit them only access to the main house. No access to any other buildings." As Ellis went to deliver these instructions, I called my attorney to inform him of the surprise visit. Then I called Jenna to warn her that her uncles had appeared at the farm less than 24 hours after David S.'s seemingly casual visit to her. "Do you want me to come?" She immediately asked. "I can board the next flight." "No," I decided. "Remain where you are." This might be precisely their goal, to isolate both of us here, separated from our legal support system, through the window. I watched the gates open, permitting the two vehicles to drive up the long driveway. Bracing myself, I went to my bedroom to retrieve one additional item Joshua had left for confrontations of this nature. It was a small digital recorder disguised as a decorative brooch. Whatever the Mitchell brothers intended, I planned to have a recording of every word. When the doorbell rang, I was waiting calmly in the armchair, facing the entryway of the great room. The recorder pinned to my sweater and the mysterious letter safely in my pocket. Ellis opened the door with professional courtesy, ushering in our unwelcome guests. Robert entered first, appearing noticeably thinner than at our previous meeting. His skin somewhat greyish beneath his tan. Alan and David followed, their expressions carefully neutral. The two strangers came in last. One carried a medical bag, suggesting he was a physician, the other holding a leather portfolio similar to those used by legal professionals. "Catherine," Robert nodded in greeting, his voice lacking its usual authoritative quality. "Thank you for agreeing to see us without prior arrangement. Family always seems to arrive unexpectedly." I responded mildly. "Please take a seat." "Ellis, would you bring coffee for our guests?" As they settled onto the sofas opposite my chair, I observed the tension in their postures and the way Alan repeatedly glanced at Robert with poorly concealed concern. Whatever the purpose of their visit, it revolved around the eldest Mitchell. I will be frank, Robert began once Ellis had gone to the kitchen. I have been diagnosed with the same heart condition that claimed Joshua, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It is genetic in our family, so Jenna's information was accurate. I maintained a neutral expression, waiting for him to continue. My condition is advanced. Specialists estimate I have 6 months without intervention, potentially years with the correct treatment. He gestured toward the man with the medical bag. This is Dr. Harmon, my cardiologist, and Mr. Pearson, my personal lawyer. I regret hearing about your health issues, I stated carefully. But I am unclear why this brings you to Maple Creek Farm. Robert exchanged looks with his brothers before continuing. I require a heart transplant, Catherine. But there is a complication. Our family possesses a rare blood type and specific tissue, markers that make locating a compatible donor exceedingly difficult. A suspicion started to form in my mind. That sounds challenging, but again, why approach me with this? Because Dr. Harmon interjected professionally, based on the medical records we reviewed, your late husband would have been a perfect donor match for Robert. And given the genetic factors involved, there is a substantial probability that your daughter might also be compatible. The sheer nerve of their request struck me powerfully. They intended to test Jenna, to utilize my daughter's body as a possible source of salvation for the man who had attempted to steal her inheritance and turn her against me. You are requesting that my daughter be tested as a potential donor for you. I clarified, ensuring the recorder captured every word of this astounding conversation. Just preliminary blood work to assess compatibility, Alan quickly inserted. Nothing invasive at this stage, and if she proves compatible, I pressed. What happens then? Then we would hope she might consider becoming a living donor, Robert responded. The procedure permits partial liver transplantation with minimal risk to the donor. Her liver would regenerate entirely within months. I was struck silent, astonished by their breathtaking sense of entitlement. After attempting to defraud, manipulate, and deceive us, they now expected my daughter to undergo major surgery for a man she barely knew, a man who had tried to alienate her from her own mother. Allow me to confirm my understanding, I said finally, my voice steady despite my internal agitation. You tried to illegally acquire this property from me, attempted to turn my daughter against me using falsehoods and partial truths, and now you appear here asking if she will undergo surgery to save your life. Robert at least showed the decency to look uneasy. I recognize how this situation appears, but we remain family, Catherine. Blood connects us regardless of our choice. Blood, I repeated thoughtfully, remembering Joshua's videos. His painful history with these men and his resolve to shield Jenna and me from their detrimental influence. You are correct on one point, Robert. Blood does connect us, but not in the manner you assume. I withdrew the sealed letter from my pocket, noting the look of recognition in Robert's eyes. Joshua left this item for you, I stated, holding it just out of his reach, with instructions to deliver it only if absolutely necessary. I believe this situation qualifies. Robert stared at the sealed envelope. Recognition and apprehension flickering across his drawn face. Joshua wrote to me. Apparently, he foresaw that even a legal settlement would not keep you away permanently. I continued holding the letter, not yet handing it over. He prepared for every possibility, including this one. An awkward silence descended upon the room. Dr. Harmon shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing he had been drawn into a consultation far more complicated than a standard medical meeting. The Mitchell brothers exchanged looks, a silent communication passing between them. Before I give this to you, I continued, I demand absolute clarity regarding your request. You want my daughter, the same young woman you lied to and manipulated 6 months ago, to undergo medical testing and potentially major surgery to save your life. It sounds cold when you describe it that way, Alan interjected. But yes, essentially. Robert's health is serious, and family members offer the best chance for a compatible donation. Why not David or Alan? I asked, looking at the other brothers. siblings are typically, and even better, match than nieces. Dr. Harmon cleared his throat. We have tested both Mr. Mitchell's brothers. Neither is compatible due to some unusual genetic factors, and are there no other siblings? I pressed, carefully observing their reactions. No other family members who might be suitable donors. Another meaningful glance passed between the brothers. David turned away, suddenly engrossed by the view outside the window. No, Robert firmly replied. No other siblings. I nodded slowly, then handed him Joshua's letter. I suggest you read this before we continue our discussion, with slightly shaking hands. Robert broke the seal and unfolded the pages inside. His eyes scanned the first few lines, then widened in astonishment. Color drained from his face as he continued reading, the papers visibly trembling in his grasp. Alan leaned forward. Robert, what does it say? Robert did not reply, completely absorbed in Joshua's message. When he finally looked up, his expression was utterly transformed. The self-assured businessman was replaced by a man confronting long-buried ghosts. How long have you been aware of this? He asked me hoarsely. I only know that Joshua designated this for you with instructions that it contained information you might require someday. I met his gaze steadily. What exactly did my husband write? Robert handed the letter to Alan, who began reading it, with David looking over his shoulder. Their expressions shifted in near synchronization, from curiosity to disbelief, then to something close to horror. This cannot possibly be accurate, Alan finally said, looking at Robert. Father would have disclosed this to us, would he? Robert retorted bitterly. The same father who pitted us against each other throughout our lives. Who played favorites based on his mood, who enjoyed keeping secrets hanging over our heads. I watched their exchange with increasing curiosity. Whatever Joshua had revealed in that letter had clearly shaken the brothers profoundly. Perhaps, I suggested quietly, someone should tell me what my husband wrote. Robert seemed to remember my presence, his focus returning to me with new awareness. Joshua was not our half-brother. He was our full brother. This information made no sense. I don't understand. Joshua told me your father remarried after your mother died giving birth to him. That was why there was such a significant age difference between you. That was the narrative we all accepted, Robert confirmed. But according to this letter, Joshua uncovered the truth while researching his heart condition. Our mother did not die during childbirth. She abandoned our father when Joshua was an infant, unable to tolerate his abusive conduct any longer. Father fabricated the story about her death to prevent the scandal of abandonment and to punish her by completely erasing her existence. But that is not the only revelation, Alan continued. His legal precision reasserted itself even through his shock. Joshua discovered that our father had maintained another family, a relationship that started before our mother departed and persisted for decades afterward. A woman in Saskatoon with whom he had more children. Now I understood the significance. 2 additional Mitchell siblings, a brother and sister, both now in their 40s, Robert confirmed, scanning the letter again. Both sharing our rare blood type and genetic markers, according to medical documentation Joshua somehow acquired. And likely unaware of their connection to you, I surmised as the various elements connected. Joshua located them, but he did not contact them, did he? He merely confirmed their medical compatibility and existence. Robert nodded slowly. According to this, he even had their contact details verified annually by a private investigator, ensuring the information remained current. In case one of you ever needed what you are currently requesting of Jenna, I finished for him. A compatible donor from family you never acknowledged. The irony was staggering. The Mitchell brothers had come to request potentially life-saving organ donation from my daughter, the niece they had attempted to defraud and manipulate. While unknown, full siblings existed who might offer the exact same medical match. There is more, David quietly added, having taken the letter from Alan. Joshua writes that he only discovered all this following his own diagnosis. He was already planning Maple Creek Farm for you, Catherine. But learning about these other siblings strengthened his determination to fully break away from the Mitchell family legacy of manipulation and secrets. He states that he wished to create something truthful and transparent to leave behind. Something constructed on love rather than obligation. Tears stung my eyes as I recognized my husband's core values in those words. Even after death, he was instructing all of us about truth and integrity. So, I stated finally, it appears you have alternatives to approaching my daughter to half-siblings who share your medical markers. Strangers, Robert weakly protested. We do not even know these individuals, and whose responsibility is that? I challenged. Your father chose to keep them secret. You and your brothers chose to treat Joshua as less worthy than yourselves. Now you must confront the ramifications of those choices. Dr. Harmon cleared his throat again. Forgive me, but from a medical viewpoint, any potential donor should be contacted without delay. Mr. Mitchell's condition is deteriorating rapidly. I looked at the man before me. Robert Mitchell, formerly intimidating and powerful, now diminished by sickness and the collapse of his family narrative. Despite all his actions, I could not feel satisfaction in his suffering. Joshua would not have desired that outcome. The contact information for your half-siblings, I said, is it provided in the letter? Robert nodded silently. Then I recommend you start there. I told him. Not with demands, but with honesty and humility. Tell them who you are. Explain your medical situation and give them the choice that should rightfully be theirs to make. Just as such a choice would solely belong to Jenna, not yours or mine, if you had approached her with truth from the start, and if they decline, Alan inquired. Then Jenna will be free to decide for herself if she wishes to be tested, I responded. But she will make that decision with full awareness of all the facts and available alternatives. No pressure, no manipulation, no lies. The Mitchell brothers accepted this silently. The family resemblance between them and my late husband was suddenly more pronounced in their humbled expressions. Joshua had shared their strong jawline and deep-set eyes, features I now noticed with fresh clarity. We will leave, Robert finally said, rising with effort from the sofa. Thank you for this. He gestured to the letter, which David carefully folded and returned to the envelope. As Ellis escorted them out, I remained seated, processing the unexpected implications and revelation. Joshua had known he had other siblings, family members who might have welcomed him, who shared his biological heritage. Yet, he had chosen to keep that knowledge private, utilizing it only as a protective measure for Jenna and me after his death. That evening, as snow softly fell outside the windows of Maple Creek Farm, I opened the laptop for Joshua's daily video. His familiar face appeared on the screen, recorded exactly a year earlier, in this very room. Hello, my love, he began, his smile warming me across time. If my calculations are correct, today might be the day my brothers attempt to play their medical card. They have been aware of my condition for years. Our father made certain to inform them when I was first diagnosed as a teenager. Though they never offered assistance, I gasped softly, astonished once again by his foresight. If they have approached you or Jenna about donation compatibility, then you have given them the letter regarding our other siblings. His expression grew thoughtful. I considered contacting them, myself, many times throughout the years, but their lives were settled, their families complete. I questioned my right to disrupt that stability with ancient family history and biological ties that might hold no meaning for them. He leaned closer to the camera. The reality, Kat, is that family is not defined by blood. It is defined by choice. I chose Jenna and you as my family. I hope whoever Robert and the others approach will be granted the same freedom of choice to connect or not, to assist or not, without pressure or manipulation or obligation. As the video continued, Joshua shared his thoughts on legacy and family with characteristic depth. I felt a sense of closure settling over me. The Mitchell brothers had arrived, seeking to use Jenna as a means to an end, just as they had habitually used Joshua. Instead, they were compelled to confront the complicated web of secrets woven by their father and the consequences of their own past choices. Whether they would contact their newly discovered siblings with genuine openness or the same manipulative tactics they had always employed remained to be seen. But that was no longer my concern, nor Jenna's, nor Joshua's. We had broken free from the toxic Mitchell family dynamics, securing our own legacy through Maple Creek Farm and the life we were constructing here. Joshua had transformed the prison of his childhood into my sanctuary, his painful history into my promising future. The Forbidden's farm had indeed become sacred ground, not because of the oil beneath the soil or the financial security it offered, but because it represented Joshua's ultimate victory over the family who rejected him and the enduring love that sustained him. Spring would return to Maple Creek Farm. The horses would graze in green pastures. Oil would be responsibly extracted from the Western Hills. And I would continue creating art in the studio my husband had designed. Jenna would visit whenever possible, perhaps bringing her own children one day to explore the land their grandfather had restored and ride horses. And Joshua would remain present in the legacy he had so carefully designed, not just in the daily videos that would eventually conclude, but in every corner of this place that reflected his determination, his foresight, and his love that the errors of the past would not dictate the shape of the future. The forbidden site had become the cherished one. The secret had become the celebrated truth, and I, Catherine Mitchell, had become the guardian of a legacy built not on biological ties or obligation, but on the purest possible foundation, love freely given and gratefully received. Until tomorrow, my love, Joshua concluded the day's video. Until tomorrow, I softly replied, recognizing that although the next day would bring a new video, a new message from the past, it would also bring me one day closer to the future I was actively creating. Inspired by his example, yet shaped by my own emerging strength, the legacy of Maple Creek Farm endured, no longer forbidden, but forever transformed. The source concludes with thanks for watching, a request to share, subscribe, and comment on liking the story.